This is Nightline and I'm Liyana Hassanel. The headlines. Cabinet agrees to citizenship for children born overseas to Malaysian mothers. And government to review need for chicken egg subsidies in June. Good morning. The Cabinet has approved draft constitutional amendments to grant automatic citizenship to children born overseas to Malaysian mothers married to foreigners, according to two ministers. In a joint statement on Saturday, Home Minister Datuk Seri Saifuddin Nasution Ismail and Minister in the Prime Minister's Department of Law and Institutional Reform, Datuk Seri Azalina Othman Syed, said this was decided at Friday's Cabinet meeting. The statement said the Constitution Amendment Bill 2023 on this matter was expected to be tabled in the current Parliament sitting, as it had met the necessary legal requirements. The proposed amendments to the Federal Constitution on this matter are to replace the word "their father" in Part 1 and Part 2 of Schedule 2 with the phrase "at least one of the parents" to enable Malaysian mothers to enjoy equitable rights under the Federal Constitution. However, the statement said other amendments related to citizenship, especially Part 3, will be studied in greater detail by a committee established under the Home Ministry and will be tabled before the Cabinet after these proposed amendments have been finalised by taking into consideration feedback from engagements with all interested parties. The two ministers said this was in line with the commitment of the unity government to recognise the equal rights enjoyed by women and men, eliminate discrimination against women, overcome weaknesses in citizenship provisions, and resolve the backlog of such cases affecting Malaysian women. It said the effect of this decision is that children born overseas before or after Malaysia Day, where one of their parents is a Malaysian, have the right to get citizenship by operation of Clause (1) of Article 14 of the Federal Constitution. It said the Legal Affairs Division of the Prime Minister's Department and Home Ministry thanked the unity government led by Prime Minister Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim and the Cabinet for realising the country's commitment on sexual equality and honouring the rights of children. In other news, Datuk Seri Saifuddin said the Home Ministry, KDN, is confident that amendments to the Federal Constitution to allow children born overseas to Malaysian women to be given citizenship can have a big impact on the Ministry in dealing with the related matters. He said this was because the Ministry received many applications related to citizenship issues.
Dan ini akan pertamanya memberi kesan menyamakan kedudukan ibu dan bapa itu mempunyai hak yang sama. Kalau sebelum ini cuma satu pihak. Dan ini akan bila ini nanti dilakukan melalui proses seterusnya, proses akhir adalah proses di peringkat parlimen ya, pindaan itu akan memberikan impak besar kepada beberapa permohonan yang ada di KDN buat masa ini.
Meanwhile, when asked if the government will upgrade the identity document, Datuk Seri Saifuddin Nasution said the security features on the identity document are sufficient and it is very difficult to forge them.
Buat masa ini kita tak menerima sebarang masalah atau aduan daripada rakyat. Ya, semua telah diambil kira mengikut standard yang telah ditetapkan.
Datuk Seri Saifuddin said this after officiating at the KDN Madani 2023 program at Complex Perpaduan Jajahan Machang in Kelantan, which was also attended by the Inspector General of Police Tan Sri Akril Sani Abdullah Sani and Immigration Director General Datuk Sri Khairul Zaimi Daud. The government will not compromise in protecting the rights and sovereignty of the country, especially with regard to claims on Malaysia's assets by the self-proclaimed Sulu Ace. Deputy Prime Minister Datuk Sri Fadilah Yusof said Malaysia would remain firm in its stand, although it had to deal with their claims filed in different countries.
Tiada yang dapat menghalang untuk mereka membawa ke mana-mana tempat yang ada tribunal. Itu yang tapi dasarnya dari segi kerajaan, apa pun mereka buat, kita akan bentangkan dan kita akan membela hak negara kita.
He said at the same time, the government is continuing with efforts to raise awareness among other European countries where there are Malaysian assets that these claims are baseless. He said the claims seem to be aimed at undermining Malaysia in the economic context because they might have funders who see an opportunity to make some profit. He told reporters this after attending the Petrajaya Parliamentary Level World Cancer Day program on Saturday. On Friday, Petroleum Nasional Berhad, Petronas, in a statement stressed that claims by the purported Sulu S on two of its subsidiaries in Luxembourg were baseless, and it would continue to defend its position in the legal aspect. The statement was referring to media reports on the Luxembourg court's decision to issue a new seizure order on the two Petronas subsidiaries this week. The government will review the need to continue providing subsidies to chicken breeders and egg producers in June. Agriculture and Food Security Minister Datuk Sri Muhammad Sabu said this as the amount of subsidy was expected to exceed 2 billion ringgit by June.
Menjelang bulan Jun kita akan buat kajian sama ada nak diteruskan subsidi ataupun apa-apa cara yang lain yang perlu dibuat. Sebab kalau sampai bulan Jun ini dia melebihi 2 bilion sudah kita berbelanja. Wang itu boleh digunakan di tempat-tempat lain yang lebih memerlukan. Itu yang kita sedang kaji.
The minister said this in a media conference after launching a Malaysia Madani program on sufficient and guaranteed fisheries in Bagan Datuk, Perak on Saturday. So far, a total of 1.8 billion ringgit in subsidies had been allocated for the breeders and producers involved to ensure that the prices of chicken and eggs were stable. In another development, Datuk Sri Muhammad said his ministry had asked the Department of Veterinary Services to carry out detailed checks on eggs imported from India. This is to ensure the quality level meets the stipulated standard to prevent the sale of low quality and expired eggs in the market. A meeting is expected to be held next week to decide on the dissolution of the state assemblies in Selangor, Pulau Pinang, Negeri Sembilan, Kedah, Kelantan and Terengganu to enable the 6 state elections be held simultaneously. Selangor Menteri Besar Datuk Sri Amiruddin Syari said the meeting will determine a suitable date for the dissolution of each state assembly and will be attended by the Menteri Besar and Chief Ministers of the 6 states.
Kita cuba nak duduk dan insyaAllah saya juga cuba hubungi SPR supaya SPR datang dan kita bincang what the best option ataupun ada apakah waktu yang sesuai untuk kita bubarkan bersama-sama.
Datuk Sri Amiruddin said this to reporters after a Meet the People session during the Jelajah Kita Selangor Penyayang program in Klang on Saturday. He added that there have been 3 unofficial meetings held on the state polls between the respective heads of states prior to this, which were focused on, among others, reducing election expenses and coordination with the Election Commission. The government is open to expanding the Rahmah initiative to the banking and insurance sectors. Domestic Trade and Cost of Living Minister Datuk Sri Salahuddin Ayub said an engagement session involving banks will also be held in the near future to discuss the matter.
Mana tahu akan ada pula package dari pihak bank dan insurans yang ingin ditawarkan kepada rakyat. Tapi setakat ini saya tidak berjumpa lagi. Boleh jumpa. Cadangan untuk berjumpa tu ada dalam tempoh terdekat.
He said this to reporters after the Sarawak level launch of the Meni Rahmah initiative in Kuching. Meni Rahmah is a government initiative to help reduce the burden of the people's cost of living, especially the needy, to get well-balanced meals at a price of 5 ringgit and below. It is participated by private food and beverage companies on a voluntary basis. As of February 16th, a total of 512 business premises have registered with the Meni Rahmah initiative nationwide. ASEAN countries need to make a concerted effort at the regional level to combat online fraud. Communications and Digital Minister Fahmi Fadzil said this was because online fraudsters were always looking for loopholes in the laws of other countries.
Sekiranya semua negara di rantau ASEAN mula memahami bahawa skam ini melibatkan semua, maka perhaps we can all update our laws accordingly and therefore close these loopholes so that the perpetrators will no longer feel that it's safe for them to operate in any ASEAN country.
Speaking to reporters after officiating the 2023 National Anti-Scam Roadshow program in Petaling Jaya on Saturday, Fahmi pointed out that laws enforced to fight scams in Malaysia may not apply in neighbouring countries. Fahmi added the issue was also raised by almost every member country of the regional bloc during the ASEAN Digital Ministers meeting recently. Aside from government-to-government and police-to-police cooperation among ASEAN member countries, Fahmi said that there was also a need as well as a regional framework to manage data transfer. He also pointed out that every year Malaysia recorded losses of over R500 million through scam crimes, while Singapore reported losses of over 2 billion Singapore dollars. Authorities have initiated a probe into 2 viral videos showing several students indulging in vandalism at a Pulau Pinang secondary school to mark the last day of the final school term on Friday. Education Minister Fadlina Siddiq said the school and the District Education Office, PPD, were fully aware of the matter and that she had spoken to the PPD officer on the incident. According to Fadlina, the boys in the viral videos, along with their parents, had been called in by the school, and the probe into the incident was still ongoing.
Tindakan daripada sekolah adalah memanggil anak-anak ini dan juga ibu bapa mereka lah untuk siasatan dan juga barangkali bimbingan dan kaunseling juga yang saya fikir penting kerana berdasarkan video itu yang tular itu saya tidak fikir ia satu perkara yang sepatutnya berlaku lah dalam keadaan kita memang tidak kompromi dalam tindakan-tindakan vandalisme dan keganasan.
Fadlina also hoped that all quarters would stop disseminating the videos to protect the identities of the students, as well as the school concerned. In both videos, a group of secondary school students were seen celebrating the last day of school on Friday by damaging school equipment and facilities, which sparked outrage among netizens. Meanwhile, Fadlina said the Education Ministry has made the necessary preparations for floods should they occur when students sit for the Sijil Pelajaran Malaysia SPM examination, which starts on Sunday until March 15th. She said her ministry's flood operations room and all state education departments, JPN, are on full preparedness to deal with all flood-related issues during the exam period.
Khususnya bilik gerakan banjir kita telah pun kita siap siaga menghadapi semua isu. Yang kedua, semua JPN kita telah pun bersedia khususnya di negeri-negeri yang memang sentiasa ataupun dijangka ataupun telah biasa menghadapi banjir. Jadi dari segi kesiapsiagaan itu kita telah pun bersedia. Memang sekolah kita semua telah bersedia untuk menghadapi satu sebagai pusat peperiksaan, kedua sebagai pusat penempatan sementara.
Fadlina noted that her ministry was also working with the National Disaster Management Agency, NADMA, on the matter. She also hoped that floods would not happen, as the ministry wanted the candidates to face the examination in the safest conditions. A total of 403,637 candidates would sit for the SPM exam, which will involve 3,355 examination centres nationwide. The MOE has also appointed 131,318 invigilators to ensure the exam runs smoothly. Pakistani Taliban warn of more attacks on police after compound raid. This and more from the foreign front when we come back. Turkish rescuers have pulled 3 people, including a child, alive from the rubble, 13 days after a massive earthquake claimed tens of thousands of lives. However, the rescue team said the mother and father survived, but the child died later of dehydration after spending 296 hours buried under the Kanatli apartment block in Antakya, the capital of Hatay province. More than 45,000 people have died and millions left without proper shelter in the aftermath of the earthquakes that hit Turkey and Syria on February 6th. Meanwhile, former Ghana international Christian Atsu has been found dead under the building where he lived in southern Turkey. According to his manager in Turkey, Atsu's body had been found under the rubble of luxury flats that crumbled in Hatay province. It was reported that the 31-year-old had been missing since the February 6th earthquake following the collapse of an apartment building. Previously, there were initial reports the former Chelsea and Newcastle player had been rescued a day after the quake, but these turned out to be false. The total number of people killed in Turkey so far is 39,672, while the Syrian government and United Nations said more than 5,800 people have died there. Pakistan's Taliban warned of more attacks against law enforcement officers a day after 4 people were killed when a suicide squad stormed a police compound in Karachi. In a statement on Saturday, the Taliban called the raid a blessed martyrdom and warned of more to come. In the latest attack on Friday, at least 4 people were killed after Taliban fighters stormed the tightly guarded Karachi police office compound, home to dozens of administrative and residential buildings. According to Sindh government spokesman Murtaza Wahab Siddiqui, 3 security office forces and a civilian were killed, while 14 security forces were wounded. However, officials said that 2 suicide bombers were killed and at least 1 blew himself up after entering the police building. The attack comes just weeks after a bomb blast at a police mosque in the country's northwest killed over 80 officers. And officials said late Friday that security would be stepped up in the capital, Islamabad. Meanwhile, at least 53 civilians were killed in an attack in Syria's central desert province of Homs, blaming the killings on the Daesh group. According to authorities, the dead were 46 civilians and 7 soldiers, while 5 people who were wounded were transferred to hospital. So far, there was no immediate claim of responsibility for the attack. It was the deadliest attack by the Daesh group since January last year, when they stormed a prison in the Kurdish-controlled northeastern city of Hasakeh in a bid to free fellow group members. A gunman went on a rampage in a small Mississippi town on Friday, killing his ex-wife and 5 other people in 3 locations before authorities arrested him. Tate County Sheriff Brad Lance said that the man has shot and killed a person at a store in the small town of Arkabutla, then went to a nearby house and killed a woman who was later determined to be his ex-wife. He added that deputies then tracked down his vehicle to home, which is believed to be his residence, and found 2 more men killed nearby. The suspect was then pursued by authorities to a second home where he was apprehended, and 2 others were found dead at the location. The 52-year-old suspect, identified as Richard Dale Crum, is believed to have acted alone and was charged with first-degree murder. sports. Melbourne Victory moved up to the 10th place from the bottom of the table after winning the City Derby against Melbourne City in a 5-goal thriller on Saturday. Former League One captain and Lyon defender Damien De Silva gave the derby an early spark and marked his Victory home debut with a headed opener from a corner in the 7th minute. Sacru striker Matthew Leckie made the equaliser in the 24th minute with a header. Bruno Fornaroli restored Victory's advantage after the break before Josh Briante found the net in the 77th minute with a deflected shot from outside the box. Leckie gave City a lifeline with his second goal just 3 minutes later, but Rado Vidosic's men couldn't find a late equaliser. Visitor City remain on the top of the ladder despite their 6 unbeaten streak ended after this defeat. And the hosts have their first win after 4 unwinning streak in the league fixtures. In another match, Sydney FC salvaged a point at home thanks to Alex Parsons' goal in the 4th minute of added time against Brisbane Roar on Saturday. Brisbane took the lead in the 34th minute through Nikola Malaznik, and Sydney failed to level matters from the spot on 64 minutes after keeper Jordan Holmes denied Joe Lawley. With the draw, Sydney are 6th in the overall standings on 24 points, while Brisbane's winless streak stretches to 6 matches, as they are in 10th place on 17 points. On to tennis. Top-seeded and world number 2 Carlos Alcaraz of Spain defeated Dusan Lajovic in straight sets to reach the semi-finals of the Argentina Open in Buenos Aires. Alcaraz, who returned to competitive action this week after suffering an abdominal injury at the Paris Masters in November, put in a solid performance to beat the Serbian 6-4, 6-2 in 1 hour and 34 minutes. He used a little bit of everything in the match, from impressive backhand passing shots to his typically devastating drop shots. He played his best tennis towards the end of the second set, showing enough confidence to increase the aggression against the Serbian. The Spaniard will face compatriot Bernabe Zapata Miralles in semi-final. In another match, second-seeded Cameron Norrie of Great Britain reached the semi-final by beating local favourite Thomas Martin Echeverri 5-7, 6-love, 6-3. He'll take on Peru's Juan Pablo Varillas, who eliminated third-seeded Lorenzo Musetti 6-4, 6-4. Cops tracking down 5 armed robbery suspects. This and more after this short break. welcome back. Police are tracking down 5 suspects believed to be involved in robbing a family of 5 using machetes in Taman Petaling, Klang on Friday. Klang Selatan Police Chief Assistant Commissioner Chia Hung Fong said all the suspects who wore masks and gloves were believed to have entered the 2-story terraced house through the rear door. In a statement on Saturday, Chia said the 5 victims were aged between 38 and 70, and one of the victims was also injured as a result of being assaulted by one of the suspects in the 1 p.m. incident. He added that the suspects then ransacked the rooms in the house and escaped through the back door with approximately 4,000 ringgit in cash, jewelry estimated to be worth 20,000 ringgit, and 5 mobile phones. Chia also said his apartment received information later that the getaway car used by the suspects was found abandoned in a residential alley in Taman Desa 1. A check on the car's registration number found it to be fake. The case was being investigated under the Penal Code for voluntarily causing hurt and committing robbery, which carries a jail term of up to 20 years, a fine, or whipping. Previously, a video showing a group of masked men who were wielding machetes, leaving a house and getting into a car had gone viral on social media. Rio de Janeiro's annual Carnival kicked off late on Friday as costume performers danced the night away during the first parades in the Sambra Dome. The parade competition is one of the top attractions of the annual Carnival celebrations that sweep the city every year, and each samba school is made up of the regiment of dancers, drummers, and performers. Let's take a look at the Carnival as we wrap up Nightline this time around. I'm Liyana Hassanel. Thank you for watching and stay safe, Malaysia.